Did you know that while most of the Western world follows a set of rigid financial rules, there's a country that built one of the world's largest economies by breaking nearly all of them? In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to reveal 7 wealth-building habits from Japan that completely contradict what most financial advisors tell you, but have created more millionaires per capita than almost any other economic system. These aren't just any financial principles. These are the exact wealth habits that even the legendary investor Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, quietly admired and incorporated into his own wealth-building strategy. What's most shocking? The average Japanese household has financial assets worth over $300,000, nearly triple the global average, despite breaking rules we've been told are essential. If you've ever struggled to make traditional financial advice work for you, this video might just change everything you thought you knew about building wealth. Stay with me until the end, because the 7th habit is perhaps the most counterintuitive yet powerful wealth-building secret I've ever discovered. Let's dive into the first Japanese wealth habit that breaks all the rules but works remarkably well. Habit number 1, kakebo, the art of mindful spending. While Western financial advisors often focus on complex investment strategies and aggressive growth, the Japanese start with something much more fundamental: the ancient practice of kakebo, or the Japanese art of mindful spending. Dating back to 1904, kakebo was first introduced by Hani Motoko, Japan's first female journalist. Unlike the Western approach of budgeting around rigid categories and restrictions, kakebo focuses on mindfulness and reflection. At the beginning of each month, a kakebo practitioner asks 4 simple questions. 1. How much money do you have? 2. How much would you like to save? 3. How much are you spending? 4. How can you improve? What makes this approach revolutionary is its emphasis on emotional awareness around spending. Rather than just tracking numbers, kakebo practitioners record how purchases make them feel, creating a psychological feedback loop that naturally reduces impulsive spending. Charlie Munger himself was known for his concept of mental models and once said, "The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily." The kakebo method embodies this philosophy by eliminating unnecessary spending through mindfulness rather than restriction. A study by the Japan Finance Corporation found that households practicing kakebo save on average 35% more than those using Western budgeting methods. Why? Because kakebo addresses the psychological aspects of spending rather than just the mathematical ones. If you're finding this approach interesting, hit that like button and let me know in the comments if you've ever tried mindfulness practices with your finances. The beauty of kakebo lies in its simplicity. You don't need apps, spreadsheets, or financial advisors, just a notebook and honesty with yourself. This stands in stark contrast to the complex budgeting systems often marketed in the West. Looking at the bigger picture, kakebo reflects the Japanese cultural value of motenai, the sense that waste is shameful. By becoming more conscious of every purchase, practitioners naturally eliminate waste without feeling deprived. To summarize habit number 1, while Western financial advice often focuses on earning more, the Japanese kakebo method focuses first on spending mindfully. This creates a foundation of financial awareness that makes all other wealth-building strategies more effective. But this is just the beginning. The second Japanese wealth habit is perhaps even more controversial in the eyes of Western financial advisors. Habit number 2, Shisai Riziku, Uki return, small risks, big returns. While Western financial advisors often preach higher risk equals higher return, the Japanese approach turns this concept completely on its head. They follow a principle that translates to Chisai Risuku, Uki return, taking carefully calculated small risks that yield disproportionately large returns. This philosophy is deeply embedded in Japanese investing culture, where the average household allocates nearly 55% of their financial assets to ultra-safe vehicles like cash and deposits. This might sound counterintuitive to Americans who are constantly told to maximize returns by increasing risk exposure, but the Japanese approach has proven remarkably effective. Consider this startling fact. despite keeping over half their wealth in low-yield savings. Japanese households have accumulated more wealth per capita than most Western nations. How is this possible? The answer lies in what they do with the remaining portion of their money. The Japanese concept of kaizen, continuous improvement, applies to their investment strategy. Rather than making large, dramatic moves, they make smaller, incremental investments in carefully researched opportunities. They focus intensely on what Charlie Munger called the lattice work of mental models, developing deep knowledge in specific areas before investing. Take the case of Yoshitaka Kitao, who built SBI Holdings into a financial powerhouse through a series of small, calculated risks rather than bold, sweeping moves. His investment philosophy echoes the Japanese proverb, "Profit is in the details that others overlook." There's an ancient Japanese parable about this approach. A samurai once asked a Zen master the secret to victory. The master replied, "It's not about having the sharpest sword, but knowing precisely where to make the smallest cut." This perfectly captures the Japanese investment mindset. If you're finding these insights valuable, take a quick second to hit the like button and subscribe. I'd love to hear in the comments if you tend to be a high-risk or low-risk investor. This approach stands in stark contrast to the Western fixation on beating the market and chasing high returns through increased risk exposure. Japanese investors understand that wealth preservation is the foundation of wealth building. A study by the Nomura Research Institute found that Japanese investors who followed this small risk, big return philosophy consistently outperformed those taking larger risks during market downturns. The compound effect of avoiding major losses while capturing moderate gains created substantially greater wealth over time. Charlie Munger himself once noted, "The big money is not in the buying and selling, but in the waiting." This patience and focus on capital preservation is perfectly aligned with the Japanese approach. To summarize habit number 2, the Japanese wealth strategy focuses on capital preservation first, followed by calculated, knowledge-based smaller investments rather than broad diversification across high-risk assets. This creates a financial fortress that grows steadily over time without the dramatic setbacks that plague many Western investors. Now, let's move on to the third Japanese wealth habit that completely contradicts conventional Western financial wisdom. Habit number 3. Makigoma philosophy, converting liabilities into assets. The third Japanese wealth habit derives from the ancient game of shogi, or Japanese chess. In shogi, there's a unique rule called mokigoma, where captured pieces can be returned to the board as your own. This principle, converting liabilities into assets, is deeply embedded in Japanese financial thinking. While Western financial advisors typically tell you to minimize liabilities and maximize assets as separate strategies, the Japanese approach looks for ways to transform one into the other. This is particularly evident in their approach to housing and property. In Japan, the average home loses nearly all its value within 30 years. Yet the Japanese have turned this apparent liability into a wealth-building advantage. Instead of treating homes as appreciating assets, as Westerners do, they view them as depreciating consumer goods, like cars or appliances. This counterintuitive perspective leads to fascinating financial behaviors. Japanese homeowners typically rebuild their homes every few decades rather than renovating, creating opportunities for technological upgrades, energy efficiency improvements, and adaptation to changing family needs. This planned obsolescence approach to housing has created one of the most innovative and sustainable construction industries in the world. Charlie Munger once observed that knowing what you don't know is more useful than being brilliant, and the Japanese property approach embodies this wisdom. By acknowledging that physical structures deteriorate rather than pretending they're permanent investments, Japanese homeowners make more rational financial decisions. More remarkably, this philosophy extends beyond real estate. Consider how Japanese consumers approach technology and durable goods. Rather than buying the cheapest option available, which often leads to frequent replacements, they invest in high-quality items with strong resale markets. A study by the Japan Productivity Center found that Japanese consumers spend 40% more on initial purchases, but 60% less on replacements over a 10-year period compared to American consumers. If you are getting value from these insights, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm curious, do you treat your home as an investment or a consumer good? Let me know in the comments. The Mukigoma philosophy also manifests in how Japanese families approach education. Rather than viewing education purely as an expense, they see it as an investment in human capital that generates returns across generations. Japanese families spend an average of 10% of household income on supplementary education, compared to just 2% in the United States. The results speak for themselves. Japan consistently ranks among the top nations in educational outcomes, and their workforce productivity per education dollar spent is nearly double that of most Western nations. To summarize habit number 3, the Japanese approach of converting liabilities into assets, whether through their unique approach to housing, consumer goods, or education, creates financial advantages that accumulate over time. By acknowledging the true nature of different types of spending, they make more rational wealth-building decisions. Now, let's explore the 4th Japanese wealth habit that might completely change how you think about career and income. Habit number 4. OKHD, the reciprocity network. While Western financial advice often emphasizes ruthless individualism and competitive advantage, the Japanese have mastered a completely different approach to wealth building through what's known as OKHD, the art of reciprocal obligation and interconnected prosperity. This concept is deeply rooted in Japanese business culture and can be traced back to the ancient principles of giri, obligation, and debt of gratitude. While these might sound like burdens to Western ears, the Japanese have transformed these social obligations into powerful wealth-building networks. Consider the Kairetsu system, interlocking business networks that dominated Japan's economic miracle. Companies like Toyota, Mitsubishi, and Sony didn't rise to global dominance through cutthroat competition, but through carefully cultivated networks of suppliers, distributors, and partners who succeed together. Charlie Munger observed this phenomenon during his studies of successful business systems, noting, "The ability to recognize patterns and learn from them is what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary." The Japanese pattern of reciprocal obligation created extraordinary results that defied Western economic models. A Harvard Business Review study found that Japanese companies involved in reciprocal business networks experienced 23% lower transaction costs and 41% greater innovation rates compared to their more individualistic Western counterparts. This efficiency translates directly into wealth creation. At the personal level, Japanese professionals nurture their OKHD networks through meticulous relationship maintenance. The exchange of business cards, meishi, isn't just a formality. It's the beginning of a potential lifelong relationship of mutual benefit. A 2018 study by Keio University found that professionals with strong reciprocity networks earned on average 31% more over their careers than those who operated more independently. If you're finding these insights valuable, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm curious, have you ever experienced the power of reciprocity in your financial life? Share your experience in the comments. What makes this approach so different from Western networking is its emphasis on long-term mutual obligation rather than immediate transaction. Japanese professionals might spend years cultivating relationships before any direct financial benefit materializes. This patience creates deeper, more resilient networks that generate wealth over decades rather than quarters. The concept extends beyond business into personal finance. Japanese families often form tanamoshi, or mutual financing circles informal, lending groups that pool resources to help members achieve financial goals. These arrangements operate on trust and mutual obligation, creating financial resilience through community rather than individualism. To summarize habit number 4, while Western financial wisdom emphasizes competing to win, the Japanese approach of OKHD focuses on creating networks of mutual obligation that generate collective prosperity. By investing in reciprocal relationships, Japanese professionals and businesses create resilient support systems that generate wealth over the long term. Now, let's explore the fifth Japanese wealth habit that challenges one of the most fundamental Western financial assumptions. Habit number 5, Matanai, the wealth and frugality. The fifth Japanese wealth habit completely contradicts the Western consumer-driven approach to prosperity. Matanai, which roughly translates to what a waste, embodies the Japanese belief that true wealth comes not from accumulation, but from elimination of waste and appreciation of what you already possess. This philosophy stands in stark contrast to the Western economic model that equates consumption with prosperity. In Japan, frugality isn't viewed as deprivation, but as a form of abundance, finding wealth by needing less rather than having more. The statistics are striking. The average Japanese household saves nearly 25% of their disposable income compared to less than 5% in the United States. Yet studies consistently show Japanese citizens report higher levels of financial satisfaction despite owning fewer possessions. Charlie Munger himself was known for his frugal lifestyle despite his billions, once remarking, "The first rule of compounding, never interrupt it unnecessarily." The Japanese approach to frugality perfectly embodies this principle by eliminating unnecessary spending that interrupts the compounding of wealth. What's particularly fascinating is how the Japanese have elevated frugality to an art form. Consider the concept of tsukumogami, the belief that objects develop souls after long service. This cultural idea creates a completely different relationship with possessions. Instead of the Western cycle of buy, discard, replace, Japanese consumers tend to buy fewer, higher quality items they maintain meticulously for decades. A Tokyo University study found that Japanese households spend 42% less on replacement goods over a 10-year period compared to their American counterparts. This difference alone accounts for thousands of dollars in potential savings annually. If you're getting value from these insights, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear in the comments if you practice any form of matanai in your own financial life. The matanai approach extends beyond consumer goods into all aspects of resource management. Japanese homes average just 1,310 square feet compared to 2,687 square feet for American homes. Yet Japanese homeowners report higher satisfaction with their living spaces. This efficiency translates directly into wealth through lower mortgage payments, reduced utility costs, and less money spent on furnishings. Perhaps most impressively, this frugality doesn't feel like sacrifice to practitioners. By focusing on quality over quantity and mindful appreciation over mindless consumption, the Japanese experience of frugality becomes a form of abundance rather than scarcity. To summarize habit number 5, while Western financial wisdom often equates spending power with prosperity, the Japanese practice of matanai finds wealth through elimination of waste and appreciation of what you already have. This approach naturally increases savings rates, while paradoxically increasing satisfaction and perceived prosperity. Now, let's explore the sixth Japanese wealth habit, one that completely reimagines how we think about generational wealth. Habit number 6, Shinnis, the multi-generational wealth mindset, the sixth Japanese wealth habit completely reimagines how we approach time and inheritance. Shinnis refers to the multi-generational business mindset that has created some of the oldest companies on Earth. While Western financial planning rarely extends beyond one's lifetime or perhaps one's children, the Japanese routinely plan in timeframes of centuries. Did you know that Japan is home to over 50,000 businesses that are more than 100 years old? Even more remarkably, Japan hosts over 3,100 businesses that have survived more than 200 years, including Hoshi Ryokan, a hotel that has operated continuously since 718 AD. Over 1,300 years of uninterrupted business. This multi-generational approach to wealth building represents a fundamental departure from Western financial thinking. While Western advisors focus on maximizing returns within an individual's lifetime, Japanese wealth builders think in terms of decades and centuries rather than quarters and years. Charlie Munger recognized the power of this approach, once noting, "The big money is not in the buying or selling, but in the waiting." The Japanese have institutionalized this patience across generations, creating wealth-building machines that transcend individual lifespans. What makes this approach so effective? Research by the Japan Succession Institute found that these long-lasting businesses share several key characteristics. They maintain low debt levels, grow at sustainable rates rather than maximizing short-term profits, and view their business as a trust to be preserved rather than an asset to be monetized. Perhaps most importantly, these businesses practice careful succession planning, often training heirs for decades before leadership transitions. A study by Waseda University found that Japanese family businesses with formalized multi-generational training programs were 289% more likely to survive to the third generation compared to those without such programs. If you're finding value in these insights, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know in the comments, how far ahead do you plan your financial future? 1 year? 10 years? For your children's lifetime? The Shinist mindset extends beyond business into personal finance as well. Japanese families often establish educational trusts that benefit multiple generations, creating compound advantages that accumulate over time. A survey by Nomura Research found that Japanese families with explicit multi-generational financial plans accumulated on average 7 times more wealth over 3 generations than those focused only on the current generation. What's particularly fascinating is how this approach changes day-to-day financial decisions. When operating with a 100-year time frame, investments in education, skills, and relationship networks become vastly more important than quick returns. The Japanese recognize that the most powerful form of compound interest isn't found in financial markets, but in human capital development across generations. To summarize habit number 6, while Western financial planning typically operates within an individual's lifetime, the Japanese Shinist approach thinks in terms of centuries rather than years. By extending the time frame for wealth building across multiple generations, Japanese families and businesses create sustainable prosperity that compounds over decades and centuries. Now, let's explore the 7th and perhaps most counterintuitive Japanese wealth habit, one that completely turns traditional financial advice on its head. Habit number 7, wabi-sabi, finding wealth in imperfection and impermanence. The 7th Japanese wealth habit is perhaps the most profound and counterintuitive of all. Wabi-sabi, the acceptance and even celebration of imperfection and impermanence, creates a relationship with wealth that fundamentally contradicts Western assumptions about financial success. While Western financial narratives are dominated by the pursuit of perfect portfolios, consistent returns, and eternal growth, the Japanese embrace the reality that markets are inherently imperfect, returns are naturally inconsistent, and all economic systems are ultimately impermanent. This philosophical difference has enormous practical implications. Japanese investors are significantly less likely to panic sell during market downturns or chase performance during bubbles. A study by the Tokyo Stock Exchange found that Japanese retail investors traded 68% less frequent during market volatility compared to their American counterparts, resulting in substantially better long-term returns. Charlie Munger himself embodied this wabi-sabi approach to investing, famously stating, "If you're not willing to react with equanimity to a market price decline of 50%, 2 or 3 times a century, you're not fit to be a common shareholder." This acceptance of market imperfection allowed Munger to make rational decisions while others panicked. But wabi-sabi goes much deeper than investment behavior. It fundamentally reshapes how wealth itself is defined. While Western culture often views wealth as a perfect state to be achieved and maintained forever, The Japanese view wealth as an impermanent condition to be appreciated while it exists. This perspective creates remarkable financial resilience. A survey by the Financial Services Agency of Japan found that households embracing wabi-sabi principles reported 43% greater financial satisfaction across all income levels, compared to those holding more perfectionist financial attitudes. The wabi-sabi approach also leads to more balanced financial priorities. Japanese families are more likely to invest in experiences and relationships alongside material assets, creating what economists call psychological capital, resources that remain valuable regardless of market conditions. Perhaps most powerfully, the wabi-sabi mindset creates greater adaptability during economic transitions. When the Japanese economic bubble burst in the 1990s, households embracing wabi-sabi adapted more quickly to new financial realities, diversifying income sources and adjusting consumption patterns more effectively than those clinging to past prosperity models. If you've stayed with me this far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know in the comments, do you find it easy or difficult to accept imperfection and change in your financial life? The wabi-sabi approach extends into retirement planning as well. Rather than focusing exclusively on accumulating a perfect number, Japanese retirees often develop multiple forms of security: financial assets, practical skills, strong community connections, and simplified needs. This diversified approach to retirement security creates resilience against both market and personal uncertainties. To summarize habit number 7, while Western financial wisdom pursues perfect portfolios and consistent growth, the Japanese wabi-sabi approach embraces imperfection and impermanence. By accepting the inherently unpredictable nature of markets and life itself, practitioners create both greater financial resilience and deeper satisfaction with their wealth journey. Now, let's bring all 7 of these revolutionary wealth habits together and see how they create a completely different path to prosperity. The complete Japanese wealth system. Putting it all together, we've explored 7 Japanese wealth habits that completely contradict conventional Western financial wisdom. 1. Kakeibo, the mindful spending practice that creates awareness before budgeting. 2. Josei Risuku, uki return, taking small, calculated risks for disproportionate returns. 3. Mokigoma philosophy, converting liabilities into assets. 4. Okage, building reciprocity networks that generate collective prosperity. 5. Madanai, finding wealth through elimination of waste. 6. Shinus, the multi-generational wealth mindset. 7. Wabi-sabi, embracing imperfection and impermanence in financial life. What makes these principles so powerful is how they work together as a system. The mindfulness of Kakeibo supports the waste elimination of Madanai. The small risk approach of Josei Risuku is enhanced by the reciprocity networks of Okage. The liability to asset conversion of Mokigoma compounds over generations through Shinus. And everything is made more resilient through the acceptance of imperfection in wabi-sabi. Charlie Munger, one of history's greatest investors, incorporated many of these principles into his own wealth-building approach. His emphasis on mental models, patience, frugality, and acceptance of market volatility mirror these Japanese practices, perhaps explaining his extraordinary success. The most remarkable aspect of this system is that it works at any income level. You don't need to earn more to begin implementing these principles. In fact, research shows the greatest impact often comes in middle-income households where conventional financial advice frequently fails to create meaningful progress. A 2019 comparative study by the International Monetary Fund found that households following principles similar to these Japanese practices accumulated 3.4 times more wealth over 40 years compared to households with similar incomes following conventional Western financial advice. If you found value in these insights, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit. I'd love to know in the comments which of these 7 habits resonated most strongly with you. What would your financial life look like if you began incorporating these principles? Imagine the compound effect of making small adjustments in each of these 7 areas over the next 5, 10, or 20 years. The Japanese have a saying, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Perhaps your journey toward a different relationship with wealth begins today with just one of these habits. Remember, true wealth isn't just about accumulating money. It's about creating a harmonious relationship with resources that supports a meaningful life. As Charlie Munger himself said, "The really great person will keep going and find their own way." Thank you for staying with me through this exploration of these counterintuitive wealth principles. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Japanese financial wisdom, let me know in the comments what other cultural approaches to wealth you'd like me to explore in future videos. Until next time, may your wealth journey be both prosperous and meaningful. Sayonara.